Sir, my screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. Myself Indrajit and I am research scholar in Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, Delhi. My title of the topic of presentation is numerical simulation of ordinary differential equation by Euler and Runge-Kutta technique. Next slide is abstract. In this paper, we explore modified Euler and classical Runge-Kutta technique of order fourth. These numerical techniques are employed to provide an approximate solution to an initial value problem with ordinary differential equations. These approaches are certainly effective and practically good for solving ordinary differential equations, and they are all used to evaluate degree of accuracy of each approach. We create a table of approximate solution and exact solution comparisons to acquire and access the level of accuracy of numerical data. The exact and approximate solution shows good agreement, and we compare the computational effort required by the proposed methods. Additionally, we observe that numerical solution with very short step size provide more accurate result. The Runge-Kutta fourth order is more effective in terms of result and also produce less error. And keywords are modified Euler technique, classical Runge technique, and error analysis. Next slide is introduction. The engineering problem that we don't know came from a lot of different perspectives. There is an important role of numerical methods in solving the problem with a good experience in science and engineering fields. Numerous real world issues are transformed into differential equation. In the area of engineering mathematics, we take small step size h in both the techniques. The original conditions are scaled at the initial points only, are labeled initial value problems. Numerous scientists investigate the principle of differential equation and other common patterns that cannot be explained using mathematical language. To simple differential equation, we may obtain closed form solution. On the other way, many differential equations so much complicated that cannot be expressed in closed form solution. Then these equations solved by scientific methods. Following a review of the literature, some authors have taken the initiative to maintain high accuracy in their solutions to initial value problems. We are aware of the differential equation in one of the domains of numerical analysis by the names of the widely used algorithms modified Euler and Runge-Kutta. When there is no analytic solution to the problem, one of the key functions of numerical analysis is to provide a numerical response. The analysis of numerical technique problem is a crucial component of learning numerical analysis. So in order to calculate the effectiveness of a procedure, forecasting error is necessary. The first numerical technique is Euler technique. This method can be understood in the simple way and geometrically smooth to express. In this method, we need to take small step h. Due to this, the method is not good for practical. If we take h large, this method is not accurate. This approach is most popular since it offers trustworthy starting points and is especially appropriate when computing higher derivative is challenging and numerical results are highly encouraging. Next slide. Finally, examples finding demonstrate the convergence and error analysis ability to clearly demonstrate effectiveness of techniques we employed. Euler method is a simple straightforward process that requires no much time because dy by dx, that is f of x, is very quickly. In the Euler approach, there is significant difference between computed and exact value. Runge-Kutta technique include its ability to calculate difficult higher order derivative with accuracy from very beginning. Runge-Kutta technique accuracy is higher than modified Euler technique. Another benefit of this method is that it just needs function value at some points on sum intervals. This paper is organized as follow. Section 2 present problem formulation, section 3 present numerical examples, and then result discussion and conclusions. Problem formulation. The approximate solution of initial value problem of differential equation of form is derived in this section with two numerical approaches. Y dash x equals to f of x y. X belongs to open interval a to b. Y of a equals to y naught, where y dash equals to dy by dx. F of x y is given function and y is the solution of above equation. First is modified Euler method, and this is the formula for modified Euler method. Yn plus 1 x equals to yn x plus h f x n plus h by 2 plus yn plus h by 2 f of x and yn. And Runge-Kutta technique. This is the Runge-Kutta technique of fourth order. These are the formula for Runge-Kutta: K1, K2, K3, and K4. And last is Yn plus 1. In this paper, we take two numerical examples. Both the examples solved by modified Euler technique and Runge-Kutta technique, and also find the solution of the selected differential equation is actual. After that, we may find the error, and we find the error in between the exact solution and modified Euler technique and Runge-Kutta technique. This is the first table in which we solve a differential equation by modified Euler technique, Runge-Kutta technique of order fourth, and exact solution. And This is the proposed error estimation, modified Euler technique, and Runge-Kutta and exact solution. From these two tables, we observe that the Runge-Kutta technique is more efficient than Euler technique, and this is the graph of the exact value and approximate value. After that, we take second example, and similarly second example is solved both the techniques, modified Euler technique and Runge-Kutta technique of fourth order, and also that equation is solved by the exact solved by the equation that we obtained the exact solution of the equation. Now we find the error between the modified Euler technique and exact, similarly Runge-Kutta technique and exact solution. This is the table that we find the error, and this is the graph that exact and approximate solution of modified Euler Runge-Kutta technique. And from the graph, it is clear that the modified Euler technique is less effective than than Runge-Kutta technique. This is a result discussion. Table first and three shows roughly acquired answer from the examples, while table 2 and 4 shows two approaches error analysis when compared to precise solution. Figure first and third shows that two case approximation of the results. Figure 2 and 4 alongside each other to show graphically depict the error estimation of the suggested method of two examples. According to the result table, Runge-Kutta fourth order technique converges more frequently to the exact solution than modified Euler technique, and also amount of error is larger for modified Euler technique and minimum for Runge-Kutta technique. Conclusion is this: the Runge-Kutta technique is more suitable, more stable than modified Euler technique in amount of error, and also produce less number of iteration and small amount of error. These are the references of my PPT, and so thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Indrajit. Now I would like to ask our today's session chair if he is having any questions.
Yes, it was a nice presentation, and let me know about what is the novelty in this topic. What is the novelty of this work, and what is an application of this equation in the research?
Yeah.
Can you discuss one
Sir, yes, sir. I will tell you. So basically, the Euler technique is used to store the water in ground level. This is the latest in the research, the latest application of Euler technique.
Okay.
And this techniques, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Okay, sir. Yes. All the best and nice.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Can I go to the next presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
So
please.
thank you so much, Indrajit. Now moving toward our next presentation. Manuscript ID is IMCCRT 2023-5542 and a paper entitled as Evaluation of Different Survival Analysis Models for NK Breast Cancer Data. So I would request presenter to please share the screen and go ahead with their presentation.
Oh, hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, so sir, permission to share my screen for the presentation. Okay, so please let me know if you can see my PowerPoint presentation for this. Is my PowerPoint presentation visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, so thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So I am John Edmond Iganas, and along with my co-author, Mr. Peter John versus Aranas, we have this study entitled Evaluation of Different Survival Analysis Model for NKI Breast Cancer Data. Okay, so the goal of this study is to evaluate several or different survival analysis models in terms of their predictive capabilities, specifically using the concordance index or C index, as well as a kite information criterion. So we had 6 different survival models in here. So this is classified into 2 different groups. The first group is the parametric models, and the other one is the non-parametric model. So under the parametric models, we have the Weibull AFT, the log normal, and the log logistic. While for the non-parametric models, we have the classical Cox, we have the Cox lasso, and we have the Cox ridge regression. Let's have a quick overview of what the driving factor, why this study came about. Okay, so of course, prediction of survival, cancer survival is best modeled through the survival analysis, or in other texts, this is also known as the time to event analysis, which is widely used in clinical and epidemiological researches. Okay, so basically a survival model is just a type of a regression model wherein you have, well, this is a type of multivariate survival analysis model wherein there are several covariates or factors that are determining the survival of specific subjects over observed different periods of time. Okay, so the accuracy metrics that we will be using in here, like what I have mentioned earlier, are the C and the ICAIT information criterion. And the data that we had used for this study is a secondary data that came from the NKI, or Netherlands Cancer Institute. Okay, so the implementation of a comparative method wherein we compared several models and test out whether which of these models can provide the best accuracy or the highest accuracy in terms of predicting the survival of the observed patients in the study were evaluated. Okay, so this is actually patterned on a pre-existing study that was made by Chen et al. During 2020, wherein they compared and evaluated different survival analysis models as a basis for a machine learning algorithm, wherein they use a high-dimensional dementia clinical data. But for the study of mine, or for the study of me and my co-author, we focus on the usage of cancer data, specifically breast cancer. Okay, so now let's move forward to the details, or what the data is all about. Okay, so like what I mentioned earlier, it is a clinical cancer data that came from the Netherlands Cancer Institute, which contains 272 patients or observations. So the type of treatments that they underwent, survival times, and then the event of death, which is coded as 0 and then 1 for dead. Okay, so by the way, when we talk about censored, okay, this does not necessarily mean that the patient or the subject died, okay? But rather, we also take into account that there were no follow-ups anymore during the observation trial as we gather the data in here. So we don't know necessarily, or we do not necessarily say that if a patient is coded as 0, he or she already died, okay? It's just that there are no follow-ups anymore with regards to this particular patient. But when we code it as 1, okay, we're very sure in here that this patient died or experienced the event. Okay, so 77 out of the 272 observations died, while the remaining either survived or lost follow-up, which are coded as 0 at the end of the 18.34-year clinical trial. Okay, so before we fit this data set into the Cox models, we need to follow the strict assumption of proportional hazards. Okay, because if the data or the variables or the covariates within the data did not satisfy this particular assumption, of course, the Cox regression or the Cox analysis as well as its variance will not generate accurate findings. Okay, so of course, since this is a statistical model, we definitely need to check whether the assumptions are satisfied or not. Okay, so for the AFT models, okay, so we also did the same thing. Okay, we also that we had used. Okay, now let's proceed to the results and findings of this study. Okay, so to verify again, like what I mentioned earlier, whether the application or usage of the Cox regression, its variance will work on the data at hand, we perform a proportional hazards test. So this indicates that the combination of all of these covariates satisfied this particular assumption. Okay, so now let's look at the corresponding coefficients that comes with different variables. Also for age, so you can see in here that for age, amputation angioinvasion, chemotherapy, the diameter of the cancer tumor, ESR1, grade, histamine type, hormonal treatment, lymphocytic infiltration, and post nodes. All of them were able to pass the proportional hazards test, which is tested at a 99% level of confidence, which basically suggests that we can use all of these variables, or we can put these variables inside a Cox regression model as well as its variants. Okay, now for the evaluation of the significant covariance. Okay, so to make it simpler, this table basically shows which among all of these variables or factors can affect the survival of our patients, as well as on how these variables affect the survival. Okay, whether these variables can help increase or decrease the survival. Okay, now, well, it's basically shown by the sign of the corresponding coefficients in here. So let's look at this one. So for age, we can see in here that across all of our 3 survival models under the Cox variants, Cox, classical Cox, Cox Lasso, and Cox Ridge, it flags a significant value. Okay, meaning that age is a determining factor on the survival of a breast cancer patient. Okay, then the lymphocytic infiltration as well as the ESR1 or estrogen 1 receptor. Okay, so we can see in here that this 4 particular variables plug significance, meaning they significantly predict the survival of our patients. Of course, the other factors in here can be also a predictor, but of course, but basically we're talking about regression in here. Definitely, it can also indicate that one way or another, these factors has an effect, well, not as significant as this. Okay, so now let's talk about the signs of our coefficients in here. Okay, so for age and for lymphocytic infiltration, we can see, as well as for the ESR1 values, we can see that the coefficients associated with these variables are all negative. So this implies, or this suggests that these variables has a quote-unquote protective effect. Okay, which means that these factors or these variables can affect the survival of our patients in a good way, or in other words, they can increase the survival, therefore reducing the hazard inflicted by the breast cancer. Okay, so on the other hand, if the coefficient is positive, that suggests, okay, if the coefficient is positive, that suggests that this particular variable has a negative effect, okay, on the survival of our subjects, meaning these variables put our subjects at risk of not surviving. Okay, so basically that's how it goes. Okay, so like what I have mentioned earlier, to make it more simple, all Cox regression coefficients relative to their corresponding hazard positive coefficients and hazard ratio greater than 1 are all indicators of bad prognosis. Okay, which basically means that they decrease the survival and increase the risk, whereas negative coefficients and hazard ratio greater than 1 indicates a protective effect or increases the survival and decreases risk to the variable it is associated. So at a 99% level of confidence, it has been observed that the 3 models, age, cancer grade, lymphocytic infiltration, and estrogen 1 receptors are all consistent significant predictors in this model. Moreover, it can also be seen that age, extent of lymphocytic infiltration, and estrogen 1 receptors carry negative coefficients, suggesting that these variables are associated to an increase in the survival of the patients. Okay, so as for the cancer grade, it's expected that the positive increment or increase in the grade is attributed to the decline of the survival of the subject. It is also worth noting that even though treatments, chemotherapy, hormonal treatments, and breast amputation did not flag any statistical significance, only chemotherapy is associated to an increased survival. Well, basically, we actually expect, right, that this particular treatment is associated with an increased survival. Although, in terms of the model that we have in here right now, it is not as significant as the other mentioned variables. Okay, so another disclaimer when we are doing Cox regression, just like any regression model in general, we always need to take into account that the combination of our variables can also affect the significance of each of the variables. Okay, so like what I have mentioned, what if there's a scenario we remove some particular variables in there, like age, lymphocytic infiltration, and ESR1 receptors. Okay, they can also affect, okay, the significance of the remaining variables depending on the combination of the actual variables used in the modeling. But of course, the reason why we use these particular combinations of the variables is because these are the variables that pass our proportional hazards test. Okay, so same thing goes. These are also the same combination of the variables that we will be using on our parametric models. Okay, so now let's look at the parametric models. Okay, so we have three in here. We have the Weibull, the log logistic, and the log normal. So we can see in here that in the Weibull distribution, or in the Weibull AFT model, or accelerated failure time model, okay, age, ESR1, grade, as well as lymphocytic infiltration are the combination of those significant covariates, which basically is the same as with the previous non-parametric models. However, when we look at the log logistic and the log normal, we only have two significant predictors in here, which is the ESR1 and the cancer grade. Okay, so I think you might also notice in here that the signs of the variables in the parametric models are the inverse of the signs of those in the non-parametric model. So we will go through with that later. Okay, but we can see in here that in terms of the results, or in terms of the variables that we have in here, okay, or the values of the coefficient that we have in here, okay, we can see in here that there are relatively less significant predictors that we have on the log logistic and the log normal compared to our Weibull. Okay, so these are again tested on a 99% level of confidence. Okay, now, so for the AFT models, the acceleration or the deceleration time is affected by the effects of the multiple covariates via a log linear model. Or in other words, when we talk about AFTs, or accelerated failure time models, we can think of it this way. Okay, the variables or the covariates taken into account can either accelerate or can either decelerate the survival of our subjects that we are observing in here. So this also explains why the coefficients or the weights that comes with a certain covariate has an opposite sign compared to a Cox model. So this is due to the positive coefficients decelerate the event time, which is divided by the covariate or factor, indicating that this covariate or factor increases the mean or median survival time. So conversely, a negative coefficient will accelerate the occurrence of the event, which then reduces the survival or the median survival. So this, though this may be the case, it is evident that regardless of the varying coefficients and p-values for the 6 models, we can always see that estrogen 1 or ESR1 as well as cancer grade are always the consistent significant predictors of breast cancer. So meaning to say, for the estrogen 1 receptors, okay, having greater values of this is associated with increased survival, while for the cancer grade, having a higher value of the cancer grade is associated with a decreased survival. Okay? Of course, when we talk about parametric models, like the one that you have here earlier, we also need to verify, okay, whether which of this particular AFT models can actually fit the survival times of our patients. Because like what I have mentioned earlier, when we talk about parametric modeling, we always assume that the survival time of our observations must follow a certain distribution. Well, in this case, we actually use 3 distributions: the Weibull, the log logistic, and the log normal. Okay, now we need to verify which actually of these 3 different distributions can fit the survival time of our patient. So we did in here a summary. Okay, we did in here a summary for the, sorry for that. Okay, so we actually did here a summary of accuracy metrics. Okay, in order for us to verify which of these particular models can actually best predict the survival of our patients. Okay, so we use C-index and partial AIC for the non-parametric models or semi-parametric models, while for our parametric models, we use the C-index and the AIC. Okay, so we can see in here that across these three different semi-parametric models, Cox Ridge has the highest C index as well as the, of course, not necessarily relatively lowest partial AIC, because what we want in here is to have a lower or the lowest AIC value. Okay. But in this case, what happened was Cox or the classical Cox model has the least value of the AIC or partial AIC. Okay. But when compared to the C index of our three models, what we have is the Cox Ridge, which has the highest. Okay. So in the case of evaluating survival models, particularly the semi-parametric models, we often disregard or we often overlook the usage of the partial AIC in favor of the C index. Okay. Because the C index or the concordance index is the most used accuracy metric when evaluating survival models. Okay. So same thing goes for the for the parametric models. We also look at the highest AIC value, highest C index with the lowest AIC. Okay. So in here we can see that the log normal flag the highest C index and the lowest AIC, which suggests that the survival of the patients can be best modeled by this particular parametric model. Okay. Well, for the usage of our semi-parametric models, the Cox Ridge best qualifies across them all. Okay. Again, there are some special cases that this really happens. Okay, as suggested by Chen in their study. Okay, we often take into account that partial AIC should also be relatively lower. Okay, when we select our model, but like what I mentioned in this case, we rather select or we rather focus on the usage of the C index. Okay, now moving forward, basically this table tells us that it suggests that we can use Cox Ridge and log normal in modeling the survival of our patients. Okay, so this is what am I telling earlier. So in such events, right censoring or the occurrence of the events must be considered rather than the model fit considered, which is basically shown by the partial AIC. So higher C index is the ideal metric since this is about the ratio between the occurrence of events and its non-occurrence, therefore leading to the decision of selecting the Cox Ridge regression as the most suitable model for the NKI breast cancer survival data, despite its AIC being 752.67, like what I have said earlier, relatively bigger than the AIC of our classical Cox model. So for the three variants of the AFT model, contrasting results were acquired. Okay, so Webull has the lowest AIC, but the lowest C index and the highest AIC, while log normal is the total inversion, meaning having the highest having the highest C index with the lowest AIC. Okay, so this suggests that we can use the log normal AFT in modeling the survival of the patients if we wish to use the parametric model. Okay, so now moving forward, this is basically an estimation of the average survival time of our patients from the raw data, disregarding whatever distribution they are following. Okay, so we can see in here that the average calculated survival from the raw data is 3.822 years. Okay, then we perform a bootstrapping wherein we resampled the 272 observations and calculated the averages with a confidence interval from 4.093 up until 5.4088. So we have an estimated survival of 4.476 years, or let's say roughly 4.5 years. So this basically indicates that as far as our data is showing, okay, there is an average survival year of 4.5 years at the start of the cancer onset, regardless of what age, what type of therapy, what is the cancer grade, or whatever factors it may be. Okay, so by disregarding all of those different covariates that really affects the survival of the patient, there was a calculated 4.476 or roughly 4.5 years of survival. Okay, so now let's look at the hazard function. These values actually came from the tables that we saw earlier. Okay, so using the associated coefficients, from the Cox-Ridge model, or from the Cox-Ridge survival model. So this is the equation that actually models, or that actually shows the associated survival per subject. Also in here, we can see that we have selected 10 subjects. So the upper five subjects with the highest survival rate, and then the lower five subjects with the lowest survival rate. So by using this function, we have calculated each of these individual survival rates across all of these subjects. So we can see in here that subject 228 has the highest survival years after 18 years from the cancer onset. So it is 0.96 or roughly 96%. Okay. While the lowest is for subject 131, which is actually less than 1%. Okay. So in here we can see that those cases who share the same profile as with this cancer patients, or with patient 228, is estimated to survive by 96.18% after 18.34 years. So conversely, those individuals who share the same patient profile as with cancer patient 155 is assumed to survive by quite low. Okay, I will not read this anymore. Okay, so actually, this basically tells us if an individual has a same cancer or medical profile as with this patient, patient 228, okay, they are likely to survive 96%. Okay, but if a patient is assumed to share a same patient profile as with this one, okay, they are likely to survive at this very minuscule probability. Okay, so apologies if I was not able to include the profile of these patients. Okay, but I actually included it in the full paper that I did, along with the other graphs and charts that shows the different survival rates associated with the individual variables. Okay, so the same thing goes for also performed for this log normal AFP. So in here, you will also notice that there's a difference in terms of the survival, or in terms of the survival rate that were calculated by these two different models. But you can closely see in here that almost those same patients, or same subjects, were included in the upper and the lower observations. Okay, so basically they are just saying the same thing. Okay, however, we talk about statistics in here, and we all know that numbers, regardless how small or how big they can actually affect what will be the outcome in here. In this case, the predicted survival. But overall, the results that are shown by our two different models, the semi-parametric and then the parametric, are basically similar. Okay. So conclusion in here for this study is that survival analysis best shows how statistical analysis can literally save lives. Okay. So a substantial amount of understanding on when to use a specific type of survival analysis, whether univariate or multivariate, is evident. So as for what has been learned from this study, there is no single model that can act as a one-size-fits-all test for predicting breast cancer survival. But although it can be inferred as far as the study is concerned that Cox-Ridge regression is an ideal basis for pure semi-parametric machine learning model, which in a way similar on the findings that were taken by Chen in their study. So though that may be the case, Chen also and C as well indicated that the slightest variation on the linear combination of the covariates and changes in the partitioning of the training and testing dataset can highly affect the metrics. So this is what am I mentioning earlier during the beginning of the presentation of the results, that slight variation on the data itself, and even as well as the combination of the covariates, can give varying results. Okay, because as we all know, statistics is highly affected by the data that you're using in it. That's why we can also safely say that there's a pretty good chance, or pretty large amount of chance, that the findings as well as the models that we were able to generate from this study can only work for the data that we are having in here, which in this case the NKI cancer data. Okay, so if we wish, rather this study can only provide a good overview of how to do or how to apply these different survival analysis techniques in evaluating and identifying prediction of their observed patients based on the data that we have. Okay, so moving forward, so in consideration of the metrics and coefficients acquired from the data, so log normal AFT outperforms two of its variants, giving us the idea that log normal, along with the other AFT models, are also suitable for clinical researches. So which also includes cancer survival prediction. So due to the constraints encountered during the course of the study, okay, future researchers or individuals who wish to do the same study might have an interest on the same topic, or even healthcare practitioners in the field of the cancer prognosis and treatment can also implement the same setup for this study to a different type of a cancer survival. Okay, so they can also take into account using lung, colon, skin, and leukemia data to further validate and as well as to improve the current findings of the future researchers. Okay, and I can also localize this study by using clinical data that were with the same covariates used in the study. Well, since we are here in the Philippines, future researchers can also use data from Filipino breast cancer patients, or we can also replicate or do the same study. Okay, well, of course, using the same combinations of the covariates that were presented in this study on a different locale. Okay, so this also prompts me to do this research because Philippines is also ranked as number, I don't know if it's still number 42 as of this moment, but during the writing of this thesis, which is way back February 2023, okay, so Philippines was ranked as 42 with a rate of 21.58% in terms of cancer incidences. So the said reason earlier is also to replicate and verify the results, which whether it will hold true, even if performed and tested on a different locale. So future researchers may also want to increase the number of observations to further improve the performance of the survival prediction models and to improve and increase the C index and further reduce the AIC. So I think that's all for my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Session chair, Dr. Prasad Rao, sir, if you have any question to ask. Dr. Prasad Rao, sir, are you there? Dr. Prasad Rao, sir? We got a message from his end that some network issues are there. Anyways, thank you so much, John, sir. It was a wonderful presentation. And let's move towards our next presentation. Our next presentation manuscript ID is IMCCRT 2235588 and paper entitled as Financial Inclusion in India, Role in Sustainable Development. So I would like to request presenter to share the screen and start the presentation.
Am I audible?
We can see the screen, ma'am.
Okay, and I'm audible, right?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, so shall I start?
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, thank you so much. So my topic is financial inclusion in India, role in sustainable development. Basically, when we talk about financial inclusion, it is an act of including something which is previously left behind. That means a part of something which is excluded previously that need to be included. Keeping this in view, the term financial inclusion we could define that we need to include those people under the purview of financial system which we are basically left behind earlier, and hence we can say that it is an act where we ensure that everyone in the economy must have an access to the basic financial services. And when we talk of basic financial services, it need to be emphasized that basic financial services doesn't only means to have a transaction account. Transaction account is basically the very first step of having access to the basic financial services. And the financial services include a range of products like deposits, borrowings, then making payments. So a number of factors affect this financial inclusion things. Now this word become buzzword around 2000 when all over the world people understand that if we want to reduce the poverty, we need to strengthen our financial system, because only financial system could help us to improve the livelihood of the people. Once people have an access to the transaction account, they could borrow money, they could utilize those money for livelihood upliftment, and further they can improve their standard of living, and hence the economy could be developed. So based on this view, in India, the government of India has taken a number of steps. Although the financial inclusion in India had started since independence, a lot of initiative has been taken by the government in order to strengthen the system, like formation of regional rural bank, and a lot of other steps were taken by the government. So various policies includes like microfinance institutions came in India, and a number of schemes, major schemes, which we will further discuss in the coming slides, have been introduced by the government for the financial inclusion in the country. Now, the basic methodology of this paper is we select data from various sources like Global Findex data, various sources of RBI publication, World Development Indicators, and we try to create I try to create an index of financial inclusion to assess the current status of India among G20 country. And these indicators, which includes access, uses, and quality, and these indicators are basically developed by the G20 countries only, G20 nations only, to assess the financial inclusion of the country. And based on this indicators only, rank has been assigned to the country, and this is a three-year period of study, that is 2014, 17, and 21. 3-year data have been analyzed. Now, in case of India, when we talk of financial inclusion, the history so far is like it have been always a top priority of the government since independence, because at time of independence we have 3/4 of the population which was basically engaged in the agriculture, and they made very meager money from their small land. Therefore, the expansion of credit and financial services have been the important agenda of the government, so that the various sectors like agriculture, small business could flourish in the economy, and also the people could able to absorb the financial shocks. There are a lot of financial shocks, like sometimes if we talk of agriculture, there could be natural calamities, and there could be other financial shocks also that people have to go through. So in order to deepen and broaden the range of the financial product, the government has basically relied on the banking network. And in India, financial inclusion is entrusted to the banking sectors of the country. And recently we have few other sectors like microfinance sectors, which is also contributing in the financial inclusion. But when we look into the history, the major thrust was given to the banking sector in the India, and based upon which these banking sectors were subject to nationalization in 1955, the conversion of Imperial Bank of India into State Bank of India, 1969 when 14 major commercial banks have been nationalized, and in 1980 when 6 more commercial bank has been nationalized. Then there came the concept of priority sector advances, where again the government has tried to address the need of credit requirement of the weaker section with the help of bringing those sectors which left unattained by commercial banks. Then based on the recommendation of certain committee, regional rural bank has been introduced. Cooperatives became a part of the government 5-year plan, so that the people could take loan. Then there will be introduction of NABARD to look into the agriculture and rural development part, and also microfinance institutions have been introduced since 1990. The first was a MyREDA project where SHG has been developed, and then NABARD came up with a pilot program of self-help group bank linkage program. Now, what are the major milestones that we have been through? Although all these programs have been a part of financial inclusion, But the major milestone where like when the government has launches the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana in 2014. So this was one of the major initiative by Government of India to lift the unbanked, bringing into the formal sector of finance. Now, with the launching of this Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, a number of financial security is also schemes were also initiated, because as I said that this is just a small step. When we open a transaction account, we must need to be able to have access to the basic services. So keeping in view, the government has launched a number of schemes like Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, then scheme for insurance, pension, and then for credit schemes also. In line with this only, the licensing of small finance and payment bank has been done by the Reserve Bank of India, which is based upon the philosophy that we need to, there should be differentiated approach for serving the people. That means with the same banking sector, we cannot serve the people having small savings or small deposit. Therefore, small finance and payment bank have been introduced in the India, and licensing policies have been introduced so that this bank could provide credit remittance facilities to low-income individuals. Now, what is the current status? When we look into Global Findex Database 2021, we find that almost 1.4 billion adults are unbanked in the world. Now, among these, there are 7 countries which are basically responsible for half of the unbanked population. And if you look into the percentage of India is high. Although we have a lot of financial inclusion program, but still if you look into the unbanked population, India stood for 17% of the unbanked population, which is a major share among this all 7 nations. This time also RBI has issued a financial inclusion index, and the index has shown an improvement. So this is the progress so far. This data have been selected from Global Findex data only, which shows what is the current status. These are the indicators that I have been selected. These indicators have been selected for the other G20 nations also. So it includes account, number of people having account, used a debit card or not, saved at financial institution, received wages into their account, if they receive government transfer into their account, receive government payment, utilization of digital payments, any kind of utility payment. And the first 4 data is relevant to how they are using their account, and the last 2 data is basically about their financial behavior. That is, when they need fund, where they go first. Okay? Whether it is their family or friends, or it is the financial institution, because we are talking about financial inclusion. So obviously, when we talk about funding or borrowing need, the person should dependent upon the financial system when they need fund. But if the scenario is that they are still depending upon their family or friends, so that is alarming for a country. So we have reached so far. There's a lot of progress in the data. Number of branches. The branches has been increased in the recent year. Now this is the status of financial inclusion among the G20 nations. Few countries are left out because of unavailability of the data. When we look into 2014 data, Australia is at number 1, and followed by Canada. Then we have South Africa, Saudi Arabia, then Italy and Japan. Okay, then when we look into India data, we'll find that India ranks 12th in 2014 and 11th in 2017. That means we are developing towards the inclusion. Now this is 2021 data, the latest data. In this data, we'll find that Canada at number 1, Japan as second number, and India is at 10th. So again, if we look into the data, we'll find that yes, we are developing towards the financial inclusion, and a lot more need to be done by the government in order to include the people into the formal financial sector. So this is conclusion. Financial inclusion became an important part of government policies, but it is not only important to open an account, it is also important that the government should focus on the product diversification, because a lot of accounts are inactive. People won't use the account as it is required. Therefore, we need to increase the usage of this transaction account so that we can mobilize our small saving, and then those saving could result into capital addition in the country. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Rashmi ma'am. It was a wonderful presentation. However, we are still trying to connect with Dr. Prasad Rao sir, and he is still facing network issues. He is not even, getting disconnected from the Zoom link. But anyways, the presentation was excellent, and I hope this financial inclusion part would definitely help in the role of sustainable development. So let's move toward our next presentation.
Okay, shall I exit?
Yes. You can turn off the screen.
This one.
Now our next presentation manuscript ID is IMCCRT 2023-5592 and paper entitled as Brewing Prosperity, Harnessing the Potential of Coffee Plantation for Thailand's Economic Growth. So I would request presenter to please share the screen.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. To the organizer of this research conference, the 9th International Multidisciplinary Conference on Current Trends 2023 virtual edition. Thank you so much for organizing this very timely and very academic research. Okay. The title of my research is Brewing Prosperity, Harnessing the Potential of Coffee Plantations for Thailand's Economic Growth. So Thailand's coffee industry offers a unique opportunity for economic growth and global recognition. This quantitative study investigates the potential of Thailand's coffee plantations and exportation in shaping the nation's economy, emphasizing the role of distinct branding in achieving global success. Through statistical analysis, this research explores the connection between coffee farming and economic power and offers strategies for marketing Thai coffee as a distinct product worldwide. Data were collected from primary sources, including surveys of coffee farmers and traders, and secondary sources such as trade statistics and market trends. Quantitative techniques, including regression analysis and econometric modeling, were employed to assess the impact of the coffee industry on Thailand's economic growth and determine key factors influencing coffee production and exportation. The findings indicate a positive and significant correlation between coffee farming and economic growth, highlighting the potential of the coffee industry to serve as an economic powerhouse. The research identified challenges in the industry such as market fluctuations and limited access to technology, as well as opportunities for growth, including favorable climate conditions and unique coffee varieties. Methodology. This research employs data from primary sources, survey, and secondary sources such as trade statistics and market trends. Also, regression analysis and econometric modeling were used in the study. I also used a single case study method to assess the coffee plantation industry in Thailand. So this is the comparison of Thailand among ASEAN countries. So the world ranking, Thailand ranks 19, and in the ASEAN ranking, the Thailand ranks 4th, Vietnam is 1st, Indonesia is 2nd, Malaysia is 3rd, Thailand is 4th, Laos and the Philippines ranks at 5 and 6 respectively. So these are the Consumption Statistics and Facts in Thailand in 2023. This is from the coffeeaffection.com. So it is about 3 billion US dollars, the Thai coffee market alone. It is worth $45 per person. Consumption of coffee is doubled between 2009 and 2010 per person. Per person here consumes 18 kilograms of coffee per person in a year, and that excludes foreigners. And the average price of a cup of coffee here is 2.29 US dollars. Latte prices varies from 0.98 to $3.77 in Bangkok. The instant coffee market is valued at 2.175 billion US dollars. The tea market is still a higher revenue than the coffee market, although the gap is closing. The popularity of tea is slowing further development of the coffee market. The average person consumes 300 cups of coffee a year in Thailand, half that of Europeans. So the first Starbucks was opened in 1998. Cafe Amazon, which was a Thai company, opened has 2,600 stores and still stands all over. The coffee market is expected to grow at more than 10% per annum for the next 3 years. The premium coffee market is expected to double in size in the next 5 years. So another largest coffee chain also here is the Huawei, aims to open about 1,000 newly franchised stores in the next 5 years. Single case study method. So the purpose of the single case study is to provide a detailed exploration of how one coffee plantation in Thailand operates, its economic impact, and the potential it represents for broader economic growth in the country. Case selection. While multiple coffee plantations exist in Thailand, the research zeroes in on one particular plantation that exemplifies a blend of traditional and contemporary coffee cultivation practices. This plantation will serve as the lens through which the research examines the potential economic contribution of coffee cultivation in Thailand. In-depth data collection. Given the nature of case study research, multiple sources of data are employed. In-depth interviews with plantation management to understand strategic decisions, with workers to gauge operational nuances, and with local stakeholders to grasp the broader socio-economic implications. Observations. On the ground, observations provide insights into the actual process of cultivation, harvesting, processing, and sales. Document analysis. Examining available records, annual reports, and historical documents associated with a plantation to understand its evolution and current state. Number 4 is the contextual analysis. The advantage of a single case study is its ability to delve deep into the context. For this research, it means understanding the particular geographic, social, and economic context of the plantation. How does the plantation fit within its locality, and what are its broader linkages at the national and international levels? Thematic extraction. From the collected data, themes related to economic growth, challenges, opportunities, and practices within the coffee plantation are extracted. These themes help in structuring the narrative and drawing conclusions. Triangulation. This ensures the validity of the research findings. Data obtained from various sources such as interviews, observations, documents are compared and contrasted to check for consistency and reliability. For data analysis, the model synthesized from the interviews and field observations would be assisted based fundamentally on the cut-wall root definition described as follows. The customers, the market accepting healthy choice of specialty nature coffee. Actors, anyone involved in the sustainable farming and business operations, transformation process, a balanced management and measurement approach to the business and farming operations that result in economic success, ecological healthiness of the farming land, and which also benefits the community or other relevant stakeholders. Welstanchong, a belief system or worldview advocating on CSW, creating shared value and ecological sustainability. Owner, the owner can be considered as an agroecological coffee farmer and business entity that relies on principles of ecological sustainability and sharing of value creation with other stakeholders in driving the business. Environmental constraint. The community is located in highland or of rich fertile soil that can naturally support the nutrient supplying systems for coffee farming. So in conclusion, the journey through the intricacies of Thailand's coffee plantations, as encapsulated in our single case study, reveals the profound potential this sector holds for the nation's economic growth. It sought to understand the role of coffee cultivation in shaping and contributing to the country's economic trajectory. Our deep dive into the selected coffee plantation offered a microcosm of the broader coffee cultivation landscape in Thailand. Several key insights emerged. Socio-economic impact. The plantation not only stands as an emblem of economic activity, but also serves as a critical source of livelihood for the local community. Its operation stimulates for various auxiliary industries and services, thereby creating a ripple effect in the local economy. The blend of tradition and modernity. The unique amalgamation of traditional farming techniques with contemporary market strategies positions Thai coffee plantations as unique entities in the global coffee market. This balance allows for preservation of cultural practices while simultaneously meeting the demands of a rapidly evolving global marketplace. So, of course, this is a very perfect scenario because Thailand is #1 among ASEAN when it comes to tourism. The challenges and opportunities. While the sector faces challenges from environmental concerns to fluctuating global prices, it is also ripe with opportunities. Technological advancement, sustainable farming practices, and targeted marketing strategies have the potential to exponentially increase the sector's contribution to Thailand's gross domestic product. Global potential. The quality and distinctiveness of Thai coffee, coupled with strategic marketing and sustainable practices, can elevate its position in the global market, leading to increased exports and foreign exchange earnings. So recommendations for growth. For Thailand to truly harness the potential of its coffee plantations, targeted interventions, including government support, infrastructure development, and capacity building initiatives are imperative. So thank you so much all for listening. Mabuhay ang Sawadika.
Yes, sir, it's a great presentation, Dr. Lopez, sir. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, sir, it's a great work. And sir, let me know about the significance of this study. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you explain what is the significance of this study?
Okay, so basically the significance of our study is to be able to tell the government what to do. Okay, what to do. For example, right now they have actually like they have their projects. Okay, of course they have their project, and of course Thailand is a very big nation, but the farming side is not yet fully cultivated, is not yet fully developed, and also as what I've actually presented on in my research here on my 6th slide, that Thailand ranks #4, and in the world it ranks #19 in coffee plantations, wherein Vietnam ranks #1 and #2 in the whole world. But Vietnam is much more smaller than Thailand. So basically, if they are going to, for example, if this research would be presented to the government, to the officers, maybe they could be able to study the potential of coffee plantations in Thailand, in specific regions here in Thailand.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Yeah. Okay, sir. Can you go with the next presentation? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Alfred Lopez, sir. Now moving toward our next presentation, manuscript ID is IMCCRT 20235595 and paper entitled as IT Employment in Metro Manila, an investigation between certification and degrees in information technology company. So I would request presenter to share the screen and go ahead with the presentation.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I guess that my voice is visible, audible, and visible my presentation. Hello.
Yes, sir. We can see the
Okay,
screen
thank
and your
you.
voice is audible.
Let me start. Thank you. Okay, a while ago, it was mentioned that my topic is all about the IT. Okay, that is IT employment in Metro Manila, an investigation between certification and degree in information technology company. As part of the introduction, so certification has become a popular supplement to traditional method of learning IT skills, with an increasing percentage of job posting indicating a preference for people with certification. Certifications aims to create a level of expertise in specific area. Certifications as opposed to equip academic degree are limited to certain sector or product. They are intended to give specific abilities that are immediately applicable to the job. We all know that there are a lot of certifications in computer or information technology. And one of these is the Microsoft Certified Cisco Engineer, Cisco Certified Network Associate, Cisco Certified Network Expert. And even the Adobe has their own what we call certification. Notice certification is a implementation of a certain knowledge that we may able to get coming from that particular title that we may able to see or use. So for the past 30 years, the key credentials primarily concerned with the IT sectors has been college degree and certificate. According to Cunningham, professionals' credentials may demonstrate expertise in fast expanding areas such as project management, software development, and financial analysis. As a result, this may be used to enhance educational achievements by demonstrating the level of expertise or knowledge necessary to carry out a certain profession. Another study observed that because certification have a limit life cycle, undergraduate degree in computer science are viewed more highly by IT recruitment manager. So to this day, the line between rich certification provide IT candidates an advantage in the employment process remain hazy. So the purpose of this research is to examine and contrast the variation in the accessibility and success of work in the IT sector between certification and college degree. So the statement of the problem is that the purpose of this research is to investigate if the individuals with merely certification or employment or employees or with degrees have better access to and access in IT-related professions. So this study aims to provide an answer to the following questions like who is more likely to get employed first? So is that with certification or a graduate of a degree? Or maybe both of this. Who is more likely to be find a good job? So what IT employment role needs certification or degree? So to answer to that problem, we can see that there is an objective. So we are now going to answer regarding those problems that we have in the previous slide to assess changes of employment based on an individual qualification. Of course, secondly, we have to determine a person's chances of obtaining a high-paying job based on their qualification, determine whether IT occupation demand college degree or certification. So as the scope and limitation, the researcher hope to get an understanding of the credibility of certification in comparison of the legitimacy of academic degrees so that they may decide whether to pursue them. The study is restricted to achievements and determinants of employment in IT-related occupations. So the study goal is to examine the employment rates of people who have earned academic degree and certificates, whether they are entry-level, immediate, mid-level, or even a senior level employee. In addition, the researcher will evaluate how many IT professionals have academic degree but do not have IT certification. So the study is constrained by the workers' number of certification degree. Furthermore, the study is confined to IT employee engaged in Metro Manila based organization. So this is the conceptual framework of this research. So what you can see, there is an IT job qualification wherein it is illustrated here that we have the degree, the certification, and both of this, and employed rate in IT job in Metro Manila or in Taguig. So these are some of the methodology that the researcher used. So one is the quantitative research because we use of the questionnaire, so evaluation, assessment, so for us to be able to quantify the data. So we also have the research design. So the other one is purposive sampling, wherein we may now able to use a assessment. And lastly, for us to compute this, we use of the statistical tools, ANOVA statistical tools, and OneTail. Okay, so what you can see on this given diagram, there is an age and credentials. So the figure 2, age distribution of the chosen respondents. So the age range of the survey participants, according to the data, 57% of the respondents are above the age of 31, while the remaining 43% are between the ages of 21 and 30. Furthermore, so the data reveals that the respondent average is 33 years old, while the other one is the pie chart of respondents' credentials in their first IT-related job. So this qualify when they are applied for their first IT-related job. According to the graphics, 6% had IT-related certificates, while 18% had none. So 29% has both, and the remaining 47% has solely IT-related degree. So what you will find out here in the second chart is that mostly of them are an IT-related graduates. So meaning to say here in the Philippines, we can see that they are accepting IT or even I think to other courses. So they are prepared getting and to hire the graduates rather than the certificates. Okay, let's have another graph. So this is more on academic level of respondents. You can see that we started here from 1996, and then we have the 20th century, 2002, 2003, until to the present job. So the data collected revealed that 45 respondents, 86.54% has a degree in an IT-related field, whereas the remaining 7%, 13.46% did not. So furthermore, the graph gave crucial information regarding each respondent terms of employment with the greatest time of employment, being 27 years employed since 1996. In contrast, the respondent average length of the work is less than a year employed since 2023. So what you can see in the graph right now, there is a two color. So the graduate and the undergraduate. So during the time of 2022, notice that most of the graduate are being hired and working in an IT company rather than the undergraduate. But you can see on 20th centuries, notice that the company are still accepting those undergrad as long as you have the certification. And then you can see from each of the year, notice that most of the company in Metro Manila under IT, they are accepting more graduates. Next. So figure 5, credentials of respondents on their first IT-related job. So this figure relates the qualification Each respondents held when they are applied for the first IT job. According to the figures, we have 42.31% of the respondent had an IT degree, while 5.77 had an IT-related certification. And lastly, 25% has both an IT-related degree and at the same time they have certification. And 13.46 were just starting their first IT-related job. So the next part of the figures that is all about the academic level of the respondents. According to the data collected, 14% of the respondents are students enrolled in the IT course, while the remaining 86% are graduates of other courses like CS or even MIS or computer engineering. So notice those fields are the same job that we may able to go through because they are still connected in computer programming, computer networking. So that's why they want to get the same job. Okay, so let me continue in figure 7, the pie graph of undergrad who took the certification. So according to the graph, 43% of the undergrads did not obtain certification before applying for their first IT-related job. Meanwhile, the remaining 57% pursued credentials in preparations for their first employment. This data assisted the researcher in understanding that certain undergraduate can still find work even if they lack both degree. So it's still blessed that we can still work even though that you are not a graduate of IT as long as you have the certification. So again, we may some other companies are still accepting this. So credentials used in first IT job and their current job level. So 4 of the 24 respondents has had an IT-related degree on this first IT job are currently working at entry level. 3 are the first level management, another 3 are in the middle management, 10 are in the intermediate or experienced management, and the remaining 4 are in the executive or senior management. On the other hand, 1 of the 3 respondents with the IT qualification is now in the entry management, another is in the first level management, and the last is in the executive management. Furthermore, 2 of the 15 respondents with the IT degrees and certification have an entry-level position. 1 is in the first management level, 3 are in the middle, and the 6 of them intermediate or experienced level. So let me only show one statistical formula has been used here. So this is all about the ANOVA, wherein we can see that we have the first row, the second row, and the third row. So according to this, that there are 50 respondents that we can see, and the sum, the average, and the variance that we can see. So the first row is considered is with the certification, while the other row is for a graduate of BSIT or BSCS or BS Engineering, and lastly with the degree and certification at the same time. So mostly that we can see from the ANOVA single factor that they are a graduate of a degree. So the relatively low P value suggests that there are substantial differences between the 3 groups when using the A test with 95% similarity to each other. Okay. So as a summary, although we live in a world of information technology is becoming a part of our everyday lives. And many businesses now have IT departments to handle their computers network and other technical parts of their operations. The purpose of this research is to compare the effect of the information technology certification and degree on the employment likelihood of the IT jobs in Metro Manila. So this study tries to answer the following question in order to address the problem. Who is more likely to get employed first? Who is more likely to obtain a well-paying job and rich IT career job required certification or and degree? Data on the employment rate of person rich academic degree and IT-related certification was acquired from IT workers in Metro Manila based enterprises as the result. A survey questionnaire was provided by the researcher and 50 IT experts answer in different position, in different area, in different company of the IT company. So the survey questionnaire included questions on the respondent age, employment work level, academic status here in the field of IT, and credentials when they are applied for their first IT-related job. So under the statistic techniques, ANOVA and 1TLT tests were employed in the study to evaluate and interpret the data overall. The researcher come to the conclusions that obtaining a bachelor degree in IT-related subject is far more important when joining the IT profession. As part of the conclusion regarding data collections from the respondent, the researcher reached a result in the study employment of IT jobs in Metro Manila, a comparative study between certification and degree in IT information technology, and other relevant careers in the great demand since technology increasingly penetrate all parts of life. As a result, both existing organization and new initiative high demands for IT profession globally. So this study, the researcher looked at elements that have a major influence on employment rates, such as a person education background and professional credentials. In light of this, so the researcher concluded that the companies still respect the bachelor degree when assessing a job candidates, and that those with one or more likely to secure well-paying employment, IT credentials, on the other hand, are only a plus. As the recommendation, the researcher offered the following suggestion based on their findings in the study of IT jobs employment in Metro Manila, a comparative study of certification and degree in information technology. So the researcher suggests future researcher include more elements to assist reader judgment about gaining certification and a degree, meaning to say that we must able to get the two. So the degree and at the same time certification for us to have a specialization. So it is also recommended that the future studies extend the sample size of IT employees for this study and do not limit it to a particular region. So this would allow future researcher to draw more exact finding regarding how degrees and certification impact employment rates. Consider restricting the range of years of the respondents' initial years of employment to avoid making the data irrelevant and take into consideration the respondent years of progress that lead to their current position. The researcher in this study gathered data from the IT personnel. This time, future researchers should alter their replies to employee in IT firm. So this study may be used as a foundation for future researcher to develop through for a better quantitative studies and improvement in data correctness and study by giving in another task to solve. It will also lay the groundwork for a fresh understanding of the subject. Finally, the researcher hoped that students will utilize this study as the resort to the better their own research. So these are my references. Okay, thank you for listening.
Yes, sir, it's a great presentation, sir. And let me know about what is an outcome of this study. Can you discuss, sir?
Regarding with the study, we can see that this is more an investigation study comparing between the degree and the certification. So we see that the study is more on the degree because in the Philippines, they are looking the degree, not the certification. It is plus if we have the certification. So when you do some masters or even some certifications for you to be able to promote, that is the time that you can get this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Now moving toward our next presentation. Manuscript ID is IMCCRT 2023-5571 and paper entitled as Multi-Objective Scheduling of Microservices in the Cloud, a Comparative Review. So I would request presenter to share the screen and go ahead with the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. So first of all, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my research. Well, my name is Rizlan El-Huri. I'm a PhD student in National School of Computer Science and Systems, analyzes Mohammed V University, Rabat, Morocco. So my presentation today is about multi-objective scheduling of microservices in the cloud. We will move on to the agenda. First, an introduction, then microservices definition and concepts, multi-objective scheduling algorithm, and finally a conclusion. The creation of large and complex applications have led to some difficulties in managing these applications. Therefore, the researchers come up with a better solution to manage it from one large system into a combination of small services that work together in cohesive way for a widely used application where it can be easy to deploy, configure, and scale. Microservices have been discovered recently through practices which help applications on being scalable, distributed on the cloud, as well as their quick development. We'll move on to microservices definition and concepts. So first, what are microservices? For instance, we have a client browser or a website. The client wants to access many services in a flexible way and in a shorter time. So the developer will try to implement the services one by one. This is called microservices. For instance, the clients wants to know some new news, for example, wants to do shopping, wants to make a call. So the developer will try to implement each of these services one by one. This is called microservices. What was before microservices? It was monolithic architecture, which is implemented as one large system, and it shares the same database, which will lead to many problems in terms of management and the redeployment of the whole application. Afterwards, there was the microservices architecture, which consists of independent and interconnected services. Each microservice itself is self-contained and implements a specific service capability. For each microservice, it has in itself such layers. The first layer is presentation, then logic and data layer. For the presentation layer, it sends content to the browser in form of HTML, JS, or CSS. The application or business layer that uses an application service, the server, and tests the business logic for the application. And data layer, which is a database management system that provides us access to application data. We will move on to multi-objective scheduling algorithms. So what is scheduling? It is the mechanism that is used to select the suitable resources, CPU, memory, and bandwidth, to execute tasks to have less waiting and executing time. In cloud computing, the task scheduling go through 3 levels. So we have the first task level is a set of tasks that is sent by cloud users, which are required for execution. Then the scheduling level, which is responsible for assigning tasks to suitable resources to have highest resource utilization with minimum make span. And the VM level is a set of virtual machines which are used to execute the tasks. So what is multi-objective optimization? The multi-objective optimization, also called vector optimization or Pareto optimization, is a field of multiple decision making concerning mathematical optimization problem that tries to find an optimal solution using more than one objective function. Sorry. So we will see some examples of multi-objective scheduling algorithms. We will see two examples. The first one is the knapsack problem, and we will see just a brief explanation of those two algorithms. The knapsack problem is a combinatorial optimization problem. The idea is to pack a set of items. We have a set of items that have a value and a weight into the knapsack that has particular capacity and a condition of having a maximized value of the items inside the knapsack. As for the scheduling algorithm, the nodes are going to be packed by microservices instances. The nodes are associated with two computational resources, memory limitation and CPU limitation, as well as a two-dimensional capacity vector, which has memory and CPU capacity. The genetic algorithm is the second one is algorithm is the genetic algorithm, which is an heuristic search that is inspired by natural evolution. The algorithm considers the process of natural selection to have the fetus individuals selected for a reproduction for producing offspring for the next generation. The genetic algorithm have 5 main steps, which are initial population, fitness function, selection, crossover, and mutation. This is just a brief explanation of the two algorithms. So I will move on to conclusion. As a conclusion, the utilization of microservices have become the focus of the researchers, which made them try to find an efficient way or efficient solution to various problems that will lead to future perspective regarding this topic. So thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, ma'am. I would request session chair if he is having any question to ask.
Yes, sir. Can you share once again the conclusion, sir?
Yes, of course, yes.
Yes, sir, please.
Mm-hmm. Sir, you want me to share the PPT, right?
You already given. That's it. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Can you tell them what is the need to know about these things? What's that means? What is the main objective of the thing, and what is the outcome of the study?
Can you please repeat the question? Sorry.
What is an outcome of this work, ma'am?
The outcome of this work, it will help the user to have a flexible application and it will have a shorter time for accessing the information, for example. That's why. So when we had the monolithic in here, when we had the monolithic architecture as we are seeing in here, it uses just one type of code. So it is, it's not impossible, but it is, the user will have a really long time to access the information. But with the use of microservices architecture, it will help him to have the information in a shorter time, or to have the service in a shorter time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes. So now moving toward our last presentation of this session. Manuscript ID is IMCCRT 2023-5564 and paper entitled as Are the Financial Behavior of Banking and Insurance Sectors Homogeneous? Empirical Evidence from Ethiopia. So I would request presenter to please go ahead with the presentation. Hello, your voice is not.
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible now, sir. Please go ahead with the presentation.
What's wrong with it?
We can see the screen, but PPT is not visible, sir. Can you please open your PPT?
I'm opening it.
Mr. Misrak, sir, can you please open your PPT?
I'm opening it.
Can you please repeat? I didn't understand what you said.
Yes, I'm opening. It's open. It's already open.
No, the share screen option has been turned off again. Please click on the share screen and share your PPT once again.
Oh.
Sir, once again, we are able to see the screen of your laptop, but we cannot see PPT open. Please open the PPT.
My PPT is already open.
Yes, now it is visible.
Now it's visible.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the inconvenience. My research paper, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are.
My research paper are the financing behavior of banking and insurance sector homogeneous and empirical evidence from Ethiopia. And this research paper is part of my PhD thesis work. So I'm presenting on behalf of me, Mr. Sverbat, a research scholar, and my most respected advisor, Dr. Ratinder Kaur from Punjab University, Patiala. This is the outline, the introduction, objectives, hypothesis, methodology, analysis and discussion and conclusion. Ethiopia is one of the least developing countries, which is found in the continent of Africa. It's one of the sub-Saharan African countries. The banking and insurance sector in Ethiopia are integral part of the country's financial sector and a critical member of the country's economy. Based on the latest reports, National Bank of Ethiopia 2022 reports, there are 25 indigenous bankers and 18 indigenous insurance companies operating in the country. So it's critical to know whether the banking and insurance firms in Ethiopia rely more on debt or equity financing. In other words, to know their financing behavior. Well, empirical research that explored the corporate capital structure trends in developing countries is very scant. Plus, the existing empirical studies were mainly from Asian economies, not from Africa. And to the best of the author's knowledge, based on review of empirical literature, there are no Ethiopia-specific published research works that comparatively explored the financing behavior of banking and insurance firms. So the non-existence of such an empirical study in Ethiopia motivates this study. This research paper intends to address three specific objectives. The first one, to analyze the financing pattern of banking and insurance companies in Ethiopia. Second, to comparatively examine the capital structure trends of Ethiopia's banking and insurance industries. And third, to identify the possible causes of the variations in the capital structure decisions of Ethiopia's banking and insurance companies. The study has framed the following hypothesis to test the extent of variations in the capital structure behavior between these two sectors. In the null hypothesis, Ethiopia's banking and insurance sectors have no significant difference in their capital structure trends. The alternative, they have significant difference. Regarding the methodology, in order to analyze the financing behavior of Ethiopia's banking and insurance sectors, the study derived balanced panel financial data from the audited annual financial reports of 16 banks and 16 insurance companies. And these samples represent on average 94% of the market share of Ethiopian banking and insurance sectors. The parameter based on the benchmark, the branch network coverage. The study also covered the 10 years latest data from 2013 to 2022, which results in 320 from the observations. The study also employed financial ratio trend analysis approach and independent sample t-test for comparison. And the study used tables and charts to present the results. Evidencing various prior empirical studies, the primary capital structure proxy variable used in this study is the book value of the debt equity ratio. We don't have market value data, so I used the book value, and there are different capital structure variables I selected for this conference presentation, debt equity ratio. This table shows the debt equity ratios of Ethiopian banks from 2013 to 2022. As shown on the table, the last column shows the mean debt equity ratio of each bank, and the last row shows the mean debt equity ratio of the banking sector of Ethiopia for 10 years. The matrix 7.04 shows the 10-year average mean debt equity ratio of Ethiopian banking sector. This is a graphic presentation of the debt equity ratios of the banking sector for 10 years. Now, what do we understand from this table and figure? Among the 16 banks selected for this study, CBE, Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, which is the oldest state-owned bank, held the highest level of debt, mean debt equity ratio 17.26, which is extraordinary debt equity value. Based on the data, the secondary data, two things contributed for such extraordinary debt equity values. One, the deposits of its greatest number of customers. Compared to all other sampled banks, Commercial Bank of Ethiopia has the highest or the greatest number of customers and substantial government finance lease obligations. The results of this study provides credence to the general perception that CBE, which is only state-owned commercial bank in the country, receives government support, preferential treatment from the government, and the study results provides this credence. The study also found that the banking sector of Ethiopia has a very high debt equity ratio, which is 7.04, compared to the general accepted standard norm of 2:1, and 3 possible explanations based on various literatures for the observed extraordinary average debt equity ratio. One, the peculiar nature of the banking industry in general, because compared to non-financial firms, banks have the third source of normal source of financing, that is deposit financing, which non-financial firms do not have. The other possible explanation based on literature, the absence of a formally organized stock market or secondary capital market in the country. Ethiopia currently has no formally organized secondary capital market or stock markets. So banks cannot easily access equity financing or equity funds. And the third, the increase from time to time, the increase in public confidence in the country's banking sector. I use similar approach for the insurance sector. This table shows, table 2 shows the debt equity ratio of Ethiopian insurance firms for 10 years, similar approach, and the graphical presentation of the Ethiopian insurance firms. Again, among the 16 insurance companies selected for this study, the EIC, Ethiopian Insurance Corporation, which is also the oldest government-owned insurer, held the highest level of debts, average debt equity ratio 3.41, and 3 things contributed for the high debt equity values of Ethiopian Insurance Corporation. One, the insurance premiums of its largest number of insurers, substantial reinsurance liabilities, and substantial government finances obligation. Similar to the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the result of this study provides credence to the general perception that the Ethiopian Insurance Corporation, which is a state-owned insurer in the country, receives the government support. This study also found that the insurance sector of Ethiopia has a low debt equity ratio, or mean debt equity ratio 1.94, compared to the banking sector 7.04. So compared to the general accepted standard norm of 2, low debt equity ratio, and 3 possible explanations based on literatures. 1, high regulatory performance in the insurance sector of the country. 2nd, availability of equity funding to the insurance from their sister banks. Because in Ethiopia, most insurance companies in the country are established by the Ethiopian banking sectors, even they have same name. They share same name. The third possible explanation, insurers' strong internal equity generating capacity. These are the possible explanations for observed low average equity ratio. Coming to the comparison, I used independent samples t-test to statistically test whether there is any significant difference in the capital structures of banking and insurance industries in the country. And the species result is shown in table 3. The p-value is very close, very close to 0. So the study used a 5% significance level to test the research hypothesis. And table 3 showed that the calculated p-value is less than 0.05, which is insignificant. The calculated p-value is insignificant, so it does not support the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis is rejected. And we concluded a statistically significant difference in the capital structure measured by debt equity ratios, only debt equity ratio, between the Ethiopian banking and insurance sectors. In other words, the 2 sectors, the banking and insurance sectors of Ethiopia, have different behavior, different cultures in capital structure decisions. Coming to conclusion, the financing trend analysis using the debt equity ratio as the primary capital structure variable showed that Ethiopia's banking sector companies employed a very high level of debt finance, which indicates a high financial risk level. In contrast, the Ethiopia's insurance sector companies employed a lower level of debt finance, implying that Ethiopian insurers were not utilizing debt finance optimally to maximize shareholder value. The research outcome also indicate that the capital structures of the Ethiopian banking and insurance sectors have significant difference over the study period, and 6 factors may have contributed to the observed difference. the peculiarity nature of the banking sector, the absence of a formal secondary stock market to attract ticket investors by the banking sector, the increase in public confidence in the banking system, solid regulatory performance in the insurance sector, insurance access to raise equity funds from their sister banks, and the insurance company's internal equity generating ability. The study result is consistent with the findings of prior empirical studies that banking sector companies are more likely to have very high debt equity values, but further empirical studies on more sectors in Ethiopia are needed to verify the consistency of the findings across various sectors. And future researchers may include new capital structure variables or measurements, different capital structure compositions, such as interest-bearing debt ratio, short-term debt ratio, interest coverage ratio, and they may design firms by age, size, and ownership structure. So the final conclusion, based on the research topic, the financing behavior of the banking and insurance sectors in Ethiopia are not homogeneous. Thank you. Thank you. I finished. Hello?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. Again, our today's session chair is facing some technical issues, network issues. However, the presentation was really good, sir, and we really understood the number of additional insights into the things that you told about the Ethiopia's capital structure. Now I declare that this session is over. But before going ahead and continuing with our coming session, which would be one-to-one presentation that is going to happen after probably 1 hour, I would request everyone to please turn on their cameras so that we can have some photos which we would be uploading in our proceeding. So, yes, Dr. Misra, please turn off the share screen options. Yeah, thank you, sir. I would request everyone to please turn on the camera so I can see your happy smiley faces that would be pasted in our proceedings. Could you please turn on your cameras? Gizelan Ilahori, Leon Lopez, Sunil Kumar, Andrew Livag, Bianca Lozeno, Dr. Ravish Kumar, sir, Dr. Vijay Babu, sir. I request everyone . Can you just show the sign of victories? Wonderful. So let me paste it. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining over here. Soon our team will connect with you and will give you further information regarding the certificates and proceeding and even the publication part. And those who would like to attend to our one-to-one presentation, unfortunately, that would be only one-to-one, so you won't be able to attend that. But we're going to start with 10th International Conference in our coming months. We will inform you that too also soon. Those who would like to publish their articles in Scopus Index journals, we have a couple of journals where you can get your article published and get it indexed. Not only published, but also getting indexed. So that too our team will share with you all. So yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for joining over here. And I declare this session as over. Thank you, everyone.